All right, so you guys, I think, left one lingering question for me in Judges 16, and we'll also tackle 17 and 18 today. So the programming notes, before I forget, would be Vicar is leaving, because he wants to, because he has to. So you get him the next 3 weeks after today, and because he needs to do things from scratch a little bit, he's going to give you a 3-week tour of Jonah before he leaves, something that he created and will teach. So, my plan is to have Vicar for 3 weeks, and then we'll be back for a few weeks to finish up Judges, and that puts us at the end of September-ish, probably doing Ephesians. So, looking at the idea of what's the total opposite of Judges, where God's people don't live for Him and trust in Him, well, maybe Ephesians would be a good break in the New Testament for us. And then maybe after that we'll dig into some Samuel and continue our Old Testament trek, not missing a beat. So that's kind of my thoughts at the moment.
There might be some challenging distractions that third week with VBS going on.
Oh yeah. Thank you for that note too. So maybe you'll have to do it in 2 weeks. I don't know. Okay, yeah, thank you for mentioning that. I'll be sure to remind Pastor Mike and Vicar of that. Yeah, so we won't meet that Wednesday unless we were to change the time.
Right.
So, yeah, BBS. If we had our school commons built, we could just meet over there. You know, that will come in handy sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, bottom of Judges 16, what did we learn about God's faithfulness to Samson? And I just direct your attention maybe to verse 28 there, chapter 16. Samson called out to the Lord. He said, Lord God, remember me. I pray, give me strength. I pray this one more time, O God. Let me get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes in one act of vengeance. You see? Yep.
All right, I have the ESV, and it's slightly different, and it says this, he's asking God to remember him, but to strengthen him only this once, that I may be avenged on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. And that sounds somewhat different than revenge, because the way you read it, it sounds like he wanted to get revenge. And here he's asking God, it's like asking God for that vengeance.
Yeah, I brought that up last week, and it really bothered me. No, I brought up
I
that
did, yes.
I thought it was
Yeah.
wrong for him to ask the Lord to get revenge.
So what is the truth of the matter is he was really relying on God's
That's
strength.
a neat thing for that.
EHV says revenge.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to get into a Hebrew debate because I'm not prepared for it. But I would say, Samson has, in defense of the EHV, I'll say Samson has not been a true prophet or scholar, in my opinion, right? So for him to say revenge and then to say, well, my eyes and what they did to me, but apparently the word can go either way. I don't know if there is a note there on that word.
Mine.
Probably. Yeah, so interesting, but what about God's grace here? I guess that's where I want to keep going. Even the whole chapter, God is patient, right? God is gracious to his people. I mean, you started out with like Samson. You're such a goofball, right? I mean, you're just touching things and you're breaking your Nazarite vow, you're not listening to your parents, and you're marrying these ladies of different religions, and you're sleeping with a prostitute, and yet God listened to his last prayer too, right? And maybe would say it wasn't so much about Samson, but delivering his people. We don't want to say every warrior wins because God likes the warrior. No, maybe warriors win because God is protecting the people behind that warrior and the outcome. So, Wayne, had a thought?
I was just thinking about, is it Elisha? It's, the Bible says the soul that sinneth, it shall die. But Elisha never died. He was taken up into heaven. God made the rule. God can make exceptions.
Are you just telling me that Elisha never sinned?
No, I'm telling you, he sinned. Therefore, he should die because the Bible says he should die. He will die, but he didn't die because God said, "No, you don't have to."
Well, and I apply it to us, right? We don't taste and suffer the second death, right? The eternal death, even though we have sinned. Yeah.
Is there a tally of how many people he killed in his lifetime? I mean, he had 300. Now at the temple, there was 3,000 kind of hanging out, or
Right. You kind of do that math in the back of your head. Didn't it say he killed more in that act than he did previously?
Yeah, more than 30.
Yeah. So must have been a lot of pillars that knocked over pillars that knocked over pillars, right? But yeah, I mean we're over 6,000, I guess. Yeah.
you know, it's kind of interesting. New York had a building yesterday where the main pillar was bent, and they started saying, you start putting all that, it must be a steel structure.
Yeah, I did dive into that yesterday a little bit. Yeah, they took this old Pfizer building and they were going to put apartments on top of it, but the structure beneath wasn't secure.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going to happen, but yeah, some dangerous. It wasn't just one pillar; it was like the whole side of a building, and the pillars were breaking.
Yeah, a structural engineer would say that all it takes is when you put a load too much on one area, it'll just come down like dominoes. So Samson must have figured that out.
Well, he was. Yeah, I mean, it does tell us like he's like he's the center of the party, right?
Yeah.
Like he's the fountain, or everybody's to see him and mock him, and yeah, he wasn't in the back corner, so it does ring true. I mean, if you're gonna knock down the whole structure, you're gonna be in the middle of it, most likely, right? All right. Well, from here, Judges goes kind of just down the, you know what. Their wickedness increases. God really stops sending them heroes, and we're building up now to where, hey, we need not just a judge, we need a king. We need someone to straighten out our country from the oppression. So, bigger section here, 2 chapters. Let's we'll break it up into 3 chunks here. 17 can be our first read there, and then we'll go after that. So, anybody feeling good about chapter 17 and reading? Wayne? Okay.
How far?
The whole chapter will be fine.
There was a man from the hill country of Ephraim whose name was Micah. He said to his mother, "You know that 1,100 shekels of silver were taken from you, about which you spoke a curse that I heard. Look, I have the silver. I took it." His mother said, "May my son be blessed by the Lord." Micah returned the 1,100 shekels of silver to his mother. Then his mother said, "The silver that I received from my son, I solemnly dedicate to the Lord." to make a cast and engraved idol for my son's benefit. So now I will return it to you. He returned the silver to his mother, and his mother gave 200 shekels of silver to the silversmith who made them into a cast and engraved idol, which was placed in the house of Micah. This man Micah had a house of God where he placed a special priestly vest and a household god, and where he ordained one of his sons as his own priest. In those days there was no king in Israel, and every man did whatever was right in his own eyes.
Okay, let's pause there for a second, because half of you are probably lost. Not because of low intelligence, but because things happen fast. Micah stole the silver from his mom.
Yeah.
Then he gave it back.
Yeah.
Then she thanked him, and then gave it back to him again,
Yeah.
and told him to build an idol.
Yeah.
Of which he apparently knew how to do that, did a fine wicked job, and hired his son to be the priest. So,
Or gave it back to his mother, to
Right.
Harris.
maybe back to his mother hired the priest. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, to the mother.
Um,
And then she hired the silver.
So we are not in the ghetto here, are we? We are somewhere in the Hamptons, probably, of Israel, seeing this play out. Some people think this happened maybe before some of the judges, like timeline-wise, but thematically it fits here at the end because of the wickedness increasing. Okay, so if you follow that, now it keeps going. So, Wayne, I'll unpause you and start at verse 7.
Meanwhile, there was a young man from Bethlehem of Judah, a city which belonged to a clan of Judah. He was a Levite, but he resided in Bethlehem even though he was not a Judean. This man left the city, Bethlehem of Judah, to take up residence wherever he could find a place to stay. As he went on his way, he came to the house of Micah in the hill country of Ephraim. Micah said to him, "Where did you come from?" He answered, "I'm a Levite from Bethlehem in Judah. I'm going to take up residence wherever I can find a place to stay." Micah said to him, "Stay with me, be a father and a priest to me. I'll give you 10 shekels of silver a year, an allowance for your clothes and your food." So the Levite went with him. The Levite was willing to stay with the man, and he became like one of his sons. Micah ordained the Levite, so the young man became his priest and lived in Micah's house. Micah said, "Now I know that the Lord will treat me well, because I have this Levite as my priest."
All right.
Wow.
I got a Brazilian soccer coach, so I guess we're going to start winning some games. It's a thought, right? He's got a Levite, so now he's going to be in with God. So the look section, I just want to tap those for a moment and then talk to you guys with your questions or comments. So verse 4 says, the image and the idol. The Hebrew uses the word teraphim. They were images in the shape of human form, most likely some of Micah's ancestors. Although the use of these teraphim could be quite innocent in Micah's house, it is clear that they were objects of idolatrous worship. So, apparently, culturally, we have maybe figurines of people that aren't worshipped, but in this case, they were. Ephod. An ephod is a religious garment. In God's tabernacle, the high priest wore an ephod when he led worship. This ephod and its use in Micah's home were not sanctioned by the Lord. In general, his shrine was used for idolatry. So, I guess you're going to have a worship in a confessional, liturgical Lutheran church. You're going to have a pastor wearing an alb. The ephod really becomes the garment of your your local shrine or your household temple next to your tennis court and pool and that sort of thing, I guess. So we got everything that looks the part of godly worship, even though it was not that at all. Your comments, your thoughts about this Spolthe family doing their thing.
So is that kind of by wearing this, did he actually elevate himself in his household or in the community? I mean, sometimes I see pastors wear the collar out in public, which to me is fine. I mean, you know, I don't see any problem with it, but it's not, you know, common as it used to be. You know?
Yeah. So it's interesting. This Levi doesn't seem to be. I don't know. What about him? We don't really find out what about him other than his bloodline makes him a priest material, right? In fact, he seems rather homeless to me. He's traveling about looking for places to stay. So, can we say the Levite's a charlatan? I guess. But yeah, I guess I can't really say culturally, but it does harken back a little bit to Gideon. Like we've seen the ephod appear a few times. Like, so what do we call this? We call it syncretism, right? What if we said, oh, hey, I just visited a Buddhist temple, and when they pray, they have this big gong, and it makes the G sharp sound, and let's put it in our church. That'll be really good for our prayers. We'll have a G sharp, dong. Wayne's like, no, it's not G sharp, it's something else. But that's kind of what's happening, right? They're mixing and matching, covering their bases.
But Levites aren't supposed to travel around. We just heard last night Bible reading over the radio, and it said, the Lord says, these cities are to be given to the Levites, and they have the suburbs where they can keep their animals around the cities, and this guy's roaming around like a loose cannon.
Yeah.
Bethlehem was not really a city that.
It's not one of the Levite cities.
So already it's the red flag is going up that this guy isn't a faithful Levite. And we'll see that pretty clearly. He's entertaining these shrines, so yeah.
Was it a practice in those days that people in a household could make anyone a priest for that household? I mean, what authority did he have to do that?
He didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't. It's like
So what
Laban.
is it,
It's
He-
like
he had
Uncle
money
Laban
and-
going to get away from Laban.
so
Levites
did the
wouldn't
people
make it.
in that time just,
Do what
they
they
just-
want.
did it?
Yeah.
What they
his
want.
son, so evidently he could have multiple priests.
So I think what you have here is just a classic case of a spiritual person trying to be benefited by God, and they're not going to put their faith on the true God. They're just going to put it on whatever all bets, right? And I think you hear that today, right? I mean, you might talk to someone. There's like, yeah, my cousin is a blank, and fill in the blank. And they're praying for me, and they kind of perk up. And they don't know really what their cousin believes or what that religion is. But at least my cousin's praying for me, right? And I just get that vibe here. Like he's, if I have my own priest but no, it wasn't unusual if he's visiting a town and he sees a shrine in that town, it has a local priest or person. But he's got the Brazilian guy, right? He's got the Levite, so how cool is that, right? I got a real Levite. So of course his prayers in this shrine are going to be at least good with his God. It's total nonsense. So, but yeah, Joan, yeah.
A week ago, I was at a funeral in the Methodist church. And it was a pretty well-known person around here. And it was the strangest thing. there was no religion involved in it, except they said the Lord's Prayer at the end of it. And it was almost like they were glorifying the man that died. And they talked about him all the time and the things he did and stuff like that, and it was just, my husband thought this was great because you're honoring the person who died. Well, this was in a church, it should have been a church service.
So
And the
exactly,
songs they sang were, he did it my way, and stuff like that.
How'd that work out for people?
Well, that's hardly religious, Sinatra.
It was the strangest funeral I've ever been to, and yet it was supposedly a church service.
yeah. A classic example of what itching ears want to hear, right? We might easily take it for granted, and when we hear a sermon or a funeral talking about saved by grace, how many people bristle at that or haven't understood it? You know, what do you mean? What do you mean grace? But yeah, so I mean, if you don't hear Jesus at church, you might have just gone to a TED Talk, right? You might have just gone to a seminar about life or such. So, but I also don't want to do the opposite. You know, I think there is a fine line. You are there. To remember the person, and you don't want to pretend like, right? You're here on a normal Sunday. Oh yeah, by the way, Sally passed away. So,
I think
but you pray, yeah.
middle ground there.
But yeah, exactly. If you don't, but yeah, I do that too. When I go to a funeral, I see how many minutes it takes them to mention Jesus, and sometimes when I'm not at a confessional Lutheran service, it's like once or twice, and it might be really close to the end, and then you say the Lord's Prayer, and I think, oh, yeah, this is a service in Jesus' house, you know, and you talked a lot about God, you talked a lot about heaven, but yeah, Wayne?
Well, this is about 40 years ago or so, but in Milwaukee, the Methodist Church had their national convention, and to bring in the indigenous tribes, they had smoke signals off the stage of the Mecca.
Yeah. So smoke signals up to who?
Yeah.
I think the whole thing is on verse 6, and in those days, everyone did as they saw fit.
Yeah, there you go.
That's just what they were doing. If they wanted a priest, they took one. If they didn't, do what you want.
Yeah.
If I wanna live here, I'll live here.
And the biggest wasters of money and the biggest creators of of shrines, of course, are the wealthy, right? Like, I don't know how many times you've gone on vacation and you go to like the Hemingway house or something. I did that in Key West, and you're just like, this is really cool, but like, he's not in heaven, and I probably wouldn't have done the things he did in his life, but this is cool, right? Like, I think that's probably you got a Hemingway here type of thing, right? He's got a shrine and he wants to pray, but you wouldn't have done it.
As I'm listening to this, I'm just wondering if it has a little bit to do with, today there seems to be a lot of self-made pastors. In other words, so-and-so is a pastor. Oh, where did he go to seminary? Oh, he didn't. You kind of wonder.
Do you know who married Taylor Swift at the?
Adam
Sandler.
Adam Sandler. I'm like, oh, I like Adam Sandler, don't I?
No one was equal.
He's a Jew, or at least
Yeah,
in some
yes,
form or fashion.
Jewish.
And he did their wedding, and but yeah, I thought too when I was talking about the collar, I'm like, well, what stops you from wearing a collar to the grocery store today? Absolutely nothing, right? And what stops someone from being ordained, or a very, very low bar. And I mean, so I think we're really spoiled in the sense that we're surrounded by seminaries and training, and even in Luther's day, he wrote the Small Catechism because like the priests don't really teach God's word and know what's going on. And we look at the Catechism and we're like, this is very basic stuff. So, but yeah, it's yeah, that's why I called him a charlatan earlier. I'm like, he doesn't have a full-time job. He's not where he's supposed to be. And then as soon as he gets a warm bed and 3 square meals, he's a priest. So yeah, probably a fun movie to watch, but not a guy you'd want to hang out with. So. Well, let's continue. 18, and I'll chop this up with first reader going to verse 20. It's got a bigger section, and then 21 to the end. All right, Sharon, we'll take that first section. Thank you.
20, you said?
18, 1 to 20, yep.
In those days Israel had no king, and in those days the tribe of the Danites was seeking a place of their own where they might settle because they had not yet come into an inheritance among the tribes of Israel. So the Danites sent 5 of their leading men from Zorah and Eshtaol to spy out the land and explore it. These men represented all the Danites. They told them, go explore the land. So they entered the hill country of Ephraim and came to the house of Micah, where they spent the night. When they were near Micah's house, they recognized the voice of the young Levite. So they turned in there and asked him, who brought you here? What are you doing in this place? Why are you here? He told them, obviously, he was known throughout the
Well,
and then I'm
specifically known, or was it just his accent, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it was-
you go to a foreign country and you're like, you're an American, what are you doing here? But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
I love the Bible. There is humor in the Bible.
Yeah.
It's laughable.
He told them what Micah had done for him and said, he has hired me and I am his priest. Then they said to him, please inquire of God to learn whether our journey will be successful. The priest answered them, go in peace. Your journey has the Lord's approval.
My magic 8 ball says so, right? Like, here, go ahead.
So the 5 men left and came to Laish, where they saw that the people were living in safety, like the Sidonians, at peace and secure. And since their land lacked nothing, they were prosperous. Also, they lived a long way from the Sidonians and had no relationship with anyone else. When they returned to Zorah and Eshtaol, their fellow Danites asked them, well, how did you find things? They answered, come on, let's attack them. We have seen the land and it is very good. Aren't you going to do something? Don't hesitate to go there and take it over. When you get there, you will find an unsuspecting people and a spacious land that God has put into your hands, a land that lacks nothing whatever. Then 600 men of the Danites, armed for battle, set out from Zorah and Eshtaol. And on their way, they set up camp near Kiriath Jearim in Judah. This is why the place west of Kiriath Jearim is called Mahanaim Dan to this day. From there they went on to the hill country of Ephraim and came to Micah's house. Then the 5 men who had spied out the land of Laish said to their fellow Danites, do you know that one of these houses has an ephod and some household gods and an image overlaid with silver? Now you know what to do. So they turned in there and went to the house of the young Levite at Micah's place and greeted him. The 600 Danites, armed for battle, stood at the entrance of the gate. The 5 men who had spied out the land went inside, took the idol, the ephod, and the household gods, while the priests and the 600 armed men stood at the entrance of the gate. When the 5 men went into Micah's house and took the idol, the ephod, and the household gods, the priest said to them, what are you doing? They answered him, be quiet, don't say a word, just come with us and be our father and priest. Isn't it better that you serve a tribe and plan in Israel as priest rather than just the man's household? The priest was very pleased. He took the ephod, the household gods, and the idol and went along with the people.
Okay, yeah. So, and we're kind of pausing in the middle of the paragraph, but yeah, pretty funny, huh? So there, lost my thought here. So they should have been pretty content with their own land. The Danites, but instead of cleaning out the people that were inhabiting there, they were fierce, I guess. They looked to the north, right? And that's so we see that tribe not doing what God told them to do. They're, instead of cleaning out my backyard, I'll just go move into my neighbor's backyard because it looks cleaner. That's kind of what the tribe of Dan is doing. And well, they go into their neighbor's backyard and then they find our friends and household god at Micah's house. And this is quite a score, right? This is a wealthy god with temple shrines, and we're gonna take it. And it's humorous. They find a Levite, so why not work for us? Just it's a hostile takeover of temple shrines, and he's like, yeah, I guess that is a better idea. And what else is he going to say, right? I want to be homeless again, and let's kick me out on the street or whatever. No, so choose your friends wisely, I suppose. Micah did not. Well, let's continue with verse 21. I can read it there. So they set out on their way and sent their children and their cattle and possessions ahead of them. After the Danites had gone some distance from the house of Micah, the men who lived in the houses around the house of Micah were called out to pursue them, and they caught up with the Danites. They called to the Danites, who turned toward them and said to Micah, "What is wrong with you? Why are you shouting like this?" Micah replied, "You have taken my gods that I made and my priests, and you've gone off. What is left to me? How can you ask me what's wrong with you?" The Danites said to him, "Do not let us hear your voice. If you do, those men with a bad attitude will attack you, and you will lose your life, not to mention the lives of your household." The Danites then continued on their way, and when Micah saw that they were stronger than he was, he turned around and went back to his house. So the Danites took what Micah had made and also his priest, and they went up to Lachish against a quiet and unsuspecting people, and they struck them down by the edge of the sword and burned down the city. The people of Lachish had no one to rescue them because they were far away from Sidon and they did not have any alliance with anyone else. The city was located in the river valley of Beth Rehob. The Danites rebuilt the city and lived there. They named the city Dan, after their forefather Dan, who was born to Israel, but Lachish had been the original name of the city. So the Danites set up the engraved idol for themselves, and Jonathan, son of Gershom, the son of Moses, and his sons became priests of the tribe of Dan, up to the day of the captivity of the land. They maintained for themselves the engraved idol of Micah that Micah had made throughout all the days that the house of God was in Shiloh. Right. So, yeah. You worship on your mountain, we worship somewhere else, right? Quite a big disparity, right, between God's people and these people. Comments, thoughts?
Just the first question, what version of the Bible do you read from?
So I'm reading the EHV today.
Which one is yours, Wayne?
Same.
So we probably have a mix of EHV and NIV. Yeah.
That's Pastor Brew
So
and our son.
I go back and forth sometimes. I got bifocals or
It gets harder and harder to follow some of these, you know.
yeah, I do. That would be a question for the PGC, right? Do we? Because I can't get the NIV 84 anymore, and use it in Bible classes.
The thing is, I don't wanna use something new because I got things underlined and highlighted, and
Yeah, so
it just is so hard to switch.
yeah, and you yeah,
You
so
can get it on your phone and you can have both.
Yeah, I have it on my phone, yeah.
yeah. No, I hear you. I mean, we were backed into a corner a few years ago when they put out 2011 and they said you couldn't use 84 anymore and publishing. But I guess if the book is over 100 years old, there's no copyright. Is that the deal? That's why everybody just used the King James and never had these problems. There's no copyright on the King James, but yeah, I do go back and forth. And if you were to buy a Bible today, I'd recommend an EHV. So
It comes with a
Other-
study Bible too, you can buy.
yeah, that's like I'm leaning on my EHV study Bible. But yeah, anybody knows I got new glasses? So if I'm nodding at you, it's not because I'm agreeing necessarily. I'm trying to read or look at something. But yeah, Danites coming through, taking the Levite. Before we look at the sheet, any comments or
I was
thoughts?
just thinking that's what the Samaritan woman said, quote from what you just said. We worship God this way and you do it down in Jerusalem your way.
Yeah. So even all the way up to Jesus' time, and we're talking 1,300 years. Why are the Samaritans screwed up? Well, not only are they going to be a mix of people repopulated, right? There's going to be Jews and there's going to be Assyrians and Persians brought in. But it's also the seeds are already here of paganism and syncretism, right? Where they have an ephod. Well, you have an ephod. You have a temple. Well, we have a temple. At some point, the history becomes so long that tomato, people don't realize there's a difference, right?
So then
Peaches, yeah, I eat peaches, or they come out of a can.
so then
If you don't know any better, you don't know any better. And, yeah.
So then eventually they cover up by saying all roads lead to heaven.
Well, and that's you get back to Samson. Why is Samson not to marry from an idolatrous people? Because that's where it does conclude. And people do start to say, well,
Everybody's going to heaven.
your dad's going to heaven because of his God, mom's going to heaven because of her God, and
Which is
I'll go option 3 then. What's the big deal? Sure.
This tribe of Dan is kind of an intrigue as to what exactly later in history of what happened to them. I mean, first of all, they were allotted land from Joshua, and then they go way up north to take over the city, because I know it was easy. But I find it interesting that in Revelation 7, when the 12 tribes are listed in heaven, Dan is not in the list of the 12 tribes. So you wonder whatever happened historically to them, that they kind of disappeared or something.
So there's a brain cell of mine saying, don't they get absorbed into some other tribes, and that's why they're not mentioned? Did you have a note in the People's Bible?
Prior to what she's saying, it makes a reference here, the reader might want to compare a portion of Jacob's prophetic description of the tribe of Dan recorded in Genesis 49:17. Dan will be a serpent by the roadside, a viper along the path that bites the horse's heel so that its riders tumble backwards. So it ultimately that in
Oh.
prophetic.
What reference is that again?
Genesis 49:17. It's
Jacob's blessing.
yeah, Jacob's.
Yeah, let's flip there for a second. That's interesting. Genesis 49. I know you just read it, but
Yeah.
I think it's worth pondering a little bit further. It starts at verse 16. 49:16. I know I'm in the minority. I'll take an NIV reader. Oh, it's Kevin?
Dan will provide justice for his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan will be a serpent by the roadside, a viper along the path that bites the horse's heels so that its rider tumbles backward.
So, who or what is the horse and what is falling backwards? I mean, I don't think I need to be Daniel to interpret this. Or you have to be Daniel. What do you think that puts this an allusion to?
I think it was a troublemaker.
Just not a good tribe for the whole group, right?
Troublemakers.
Yeah.
Pain in the neck to everybody.
Let's just
He's always in the wrong
let's
place.
just call it like we see him. Mississippi, you're just a broke uncle, and we'll take care of you, Mississippi. I think it's the poorest state in the country, right? Well, spiritually, Dan is just not going to have his act together, and it's going to bring harm to the whole nation. If it bites, if it's biting the ankle and the horse is injured, yeah. So, going out of your boundaries, worshiping false gods, here seems to be, if not the full fulfillment of that, at least an intermediate fulfillment of that blessing and that prophecy. Yeah.
AI tells us
Yeah.
that Dan got absorbed in the Assyrian exile, and they just got assimilated into other cultures. Then down a little farther, it goes biblical omission. In the book of Revelations, the tribe of Dan is notably missing. Many commentators propose this was due to their historical embrace of pagan idolatry such as the golden calf, while others discuss it as a symbolic omission representing spiritual unfaithfulness. So that sounds,
We're just absorbed.
yeah.
Yeah, not to make this an AI class, but you can tell it to look at certain resources like the Kretzmann commentary is a good Lutheran commentary. It's online. You could say, give me a summary of the tribe of Dan using the Kretzmann commentary, and it will just be a workhorse for you. And just
How's that?
Paul Kretzmann says,
Wow.
yeah. So
Wow.
The kind of sports analogy, there is Danites now, and it's Dan Patrick on a radio show, and they call him Danites.
Oh, okay. So the Dan Patrick followers are the Danites. Not the Danica Patricks.
Yeah.
Okay, questions here, or well, we're still in the look section, verse 1. The tribe of the Danites was seeking a place of their own. The context for the statement is found in Joshua 20. Dan had indeed received an inheritance. It was the coastal plain along the Mediterranean Sea. However, they could not or did not want to drive out the inhabitants, so they looked for an easier place to inhabit. So, I don't know if your Bible, maybe it's a study Bible, has a map, but yeah, Dan just gets a little section right there above the Gaza Strip. I think that's the Gaza Strip, right? Not the West Bank. Yeah, it's the Gaza Strip above the Philistines, and yeah, in my mind they drew the short straw, and maybe they knew it and were a little frustrated.
No, it's flying.
So.
It's pretty bright. Sure.
Oh yeah, you got your Danites. They're into the orange there. Some of those maps, yeah. What are the questions? Discuss. Number 1, the final chapters of Judges give us a picture of life in Israel. What is your overall impression of the religious state of Israel? And make a list of the sins you find in these 2 chapters. Well, the overall state,
Everyone did as they see.
Alright. not good, because everybody was just free for all. And they were not looking back to the tabernacle, they weren't looking to God's priests and prophets. Yeah. So, what sins do we have? Just recalling a bit of these two chapters.
All of them.
All of them. I mean, we have stealing, stole money from his mom. Mom said build an idol, that's another sin. Yeah, and part of me wonders, like, did he steal originally to like build an idol? And then his mom's like, okay, son, I know, here's the money, you can go build your idol. Like, maybe you get caught with your hand in the cookie jar and your mom still gives you a cookie. Yeah, I wonder if that's kind of what's happening. We have this ephod. I mean, so we're not even just going to go full pagan. We're gonna pretend we're still godly, and that's mocking, right? I mean, that's just like, I don't know. In my mind, it's mocking that he's going to dress similar to one of God's prophets. But what about the Danites' sins? We could say the Danites sin because they
Steal, rob,
pillage. Yeah, I mean, who are they acting like? They're not acting like God's people when they're out and about looking for easy land and, robbing people in the Hamptons or whatever. Right? That's kind of what they're doing.
looking for mischief.
And spiritually, what about the Danites? Zero. I mean, they're no better than Micah. I mean, they're even lazier. Instead of building their own idol, they're like, well, we'll just take yours. It's like saying, well, I'm a car guy, and I'm just gonna take whatever car you have. I don't know what it is yet, but like you're a godly person, and you're just gonna take someone else's. So you're even on the level of pretending to be religious. I mean, you're kind of lame. But yeah, not content with God's land, God's commands. They want to worship these other ones on. Kind of interesting that they're impressed by this Levite. Like, I don't know, this guy had to have been like Rasputin or something. He had to be like super charming, right? Like,
His magic 8-ball must have worked.
his magic 8-ball. This has to be the most charming homeless Levite. Like, yeah, you guys want me? Yeah, I'll go. Too bad we can't talk to him in heaven, I'm sure. He's not there, right? We don't get his name. We have no reason to believe that he turned it around. What other sins do I why did I marked 18 verse 2 for a reason. 18. They were strong. So, again, they really weren't. Maybe verse 2 just reminds us, like, they really weren't forced out of their land to find land. They were just being greedy, sending out these spies. But God's house was in Shiloh the whole time. They could have gone there to worship it. Question 2, or did I hear somebody? So what is the point of the author's comment in 17:6? Quote, in those days, Israel had no king, everyone did as he saw fit.
There's no law and order.
Yeah. And of course, Judges is being written after the fact to people that presumably have a king, right? So is this author Samuel talking to people of his day saying, I know it's hard for you to understand how chaotic it was, but you have to understand they had no king. That's why it was chaotic. So at least with the king, God is, the king is going to appoint a priest, right? And the priest can be, good or bad. But when you have no king, then you have no priest, right? In that structure that they will have later. So they will be blessed in that sense to have a king, so that at least they're forced to have a priest. I don't know, maybe it's like you take your kid to the fruit stand when they're hungry, and at least they have to eat something that's fruit, right? At least if they have a king, they're going to kind of be forced to do something sort of right by having a priest and listening to him, because the king will want that advisor. Joan?
I didn't think they cared even for their own people when they put the kids in the cattle out in front, and so that they would be the first ones to engage with an enemy.
That's an interesting point, Joan. I didn't think much about that. Did the People's Bible mention that? What verse again was that? I remember reading it.
21.
Who lived in a house of children count. Yeah, so what's the nearest time this has happened, when the brothers Jacob and Esau were coming together, and Jacob was.
Well, he divided them into two camps, and he had kids in one camp and kids in the other.
But didn't he have the kids in the first camp? Or no? Or maybe he just divided it equally so he wouldn't lose everything. Yeah.
Right. I think that's what his intention was.
So
one was attacked, he had the other.
yeah. I wonder if, is there a note? There's really no note. So they sent spies before they attacked, and even when they attacked, it really looks like they were just intimidating, right? Like, we got 600 guys.
Yeah, what the
Yeah.
People's Bible says, the Danites expected the men of Ephraim to protest the kidnap of Jonathan and the theft of Micah's religious paraphernalia. Women and children were put out in front of the expedition for their own protection, while the men with spears positioned themselves in the rear. Might makes right. Micah did call up his fellow Ephraimites to fight for him. So that's what it says here. So for their own protection, you said them first. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either.
Be less apt to kill the women and children than
Right.
the soldiers. So they might not attack them, or they'd be there like a buffer.
Yeah. Yeah, I did read some of Sun Tzu's Art of War, and that was not part of it. Put your women and children out first, and then you'll win the battle. But, Dave?
The only thing is, if you're pursuing somebody, you're coming up from their rear, you're not going from the front. So the point I think being made here is they put the women and the cattle, or women and children and cattle in the front, because if they were gonna be attacked, it was gonna be from the rear.
Okay, so there might be some geography coming into play, because don't they say something about their alliance was with like people down in Philistia or something, and then they didn't even come to help. So maybe this is, I think maybe geography is playing a big part. So the attack might be coming from the allies from the rear. So the front is actually probably safer. That makes sense, I think, right? Yeah. Trying to think of like what kind of war do you have like that? You know, maybe you're going in from Cambodia into Vietnam, and you put the women and children first because you know the North Vietnamese are going to attack you from the rear. There's nobody in South Vietnam to attack you or something, right? It feels kind of like that. So I think that's why the People's Bible is probably saying it's a wise thing, even though we would think the people in front get fighting first. See what you learn? You have to learn politics and geography. Yeah, so again, just wrapping up that question. Yep, it's chaotic. Yeah, I put in my notes, with no godly leader, there's a low bar to a lot of chaos.